Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's Jesse with the Common Nerd, and well, there's a fun little article that one of my subscribers out there decided to inform me of, coming from all places, CBR actually, that probably when you see the headline of this, for any of you gamers out there that have been gaming a lot over the last few years, you'll probably come to use a giant no duh, because obviously we've talked about the state of the gaming industry in 2024 quite a lot on this channel, as far as all of the fails and some of the successes out there that we've had, and overall there's been a situation where we've seen a lot of the identity politics stuff just simply not sell and go over very well. Obviously, we can talk about all the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff that went down all year long and all of the rest of that kind of stuff out there. But the surprising stats that have come in simply reconfirm that stuff. The AAA studios are in a bad state right now, boys and girls. We've seen 2024 of some of the biggest gaming closures out there for a lot of the studios, mass layoffs from some of the major corporations out there. It's just been absolutely insane. And why is that? Because AAA games have continued to flop over and over again, while indie titles like Power World and Helldivers 2 and Space Marine and a lot of these other ones continue to succeed and become absolute legends out there. Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade. Think about all of these games that were huge smash hits over 2024, whereas a lot of these AAA studios absolutely floundered and flopped with a lot of their situations. Ubisoft is literally looking down the barrel of bankruptcy next year, boys and girls, because of how abysmally bad they have been doing over the last few years. So I think this title from CBR out here should probably come as no shock to anybody in any way, shape, or form, because as you can see over here from the headline, CBR.com, players are over new games. Steam users only spent 50% of their time playing titles released in 2024. And I think there's a lot of us out there that can completely and totally identify with that. I know the majority of the stuff I've played over the last few years, outside of like Power World and Space Marine 2 and Helldivers, have all been old games. Now, given I'm one of those guys out there that a lot of my subscribers out there, they like to buy me games. And if you buy me a game, I will absolutely play it. If you buy me something on Steam, you gift me a game on Steam, I'm going to find time to play it for you. And so that's what we've been going through. We've been having a lot of really good times with Cyberpunk. I've been playing with that one a lot. We've been going through the Batman Arkham games out there. Those have been an absolute blast. We've had all kinds of fun going through a lot of these games, and I think a lot of people out there are feeling the exact same way about this. So I don't think these stats come as any surprise whatsoever, but we're going to go through all of the different reasons why CBR kind of highlights this stuff. I think a lot of those we're probably going to agree with, but of course the one thing that CBR is going to leave out is the big giant glaring elephant in the room, which of course we'll discuss at the end of the video, because of course that's just the one cherry on top of the cake of all of the rest of the problems that are completely endemic throughout the entire gaming industry. So we're going to check out this article from CBR.com and get into all the juicy details. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, we're inching our way closer and closer to 800 over here on the gaming channel, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description down below. But what do you think about all this? Do you think CBR is absolutely spot on? Do these stats from Steam surprise you in any way, shape, or form? What are some of your favorite games that you've been playing the last year? Has there been some new ones, or has there been a lot of the classic stuff? What have you been playing during 2024? Let us know about that in the description down below, or in the comment section down below, boys and girls. All right, from CBR.com and Frank Reyes. The annual Steam Year in Review features is already available, and many players are checking out their stats about what and how long they played throughout the year. One of its most engaging details is the comparison to the average platform user, as anybody can see how they compare to an approximation to how everybody else is behaving. This in particular has shown a rather interesting trend. According to Steam, all of its users only spent 15% of their playtime interacting with games released in 2024. This could hint towards a shift in the market that has been in development for the past few years, as many players are placing their attention on many older games. However, there are a number of reasons that are indicative of why this change is taking place in the gaming landscape. And to add a little credence to that as well, I think that's probably one of the reasons why you've seen a lot of these studios out there trying to go with remasters and remakes. And I think this has been an industry trend for quite a few years now, which is why I think you see so many of those remakes and remasters, is because a lot of the games that they have produced in the past few years just aren't selling very well. Like I said, Ubisoft's a prime example of that. They have been literally in the red. They have been at a negative cash flow for about 3 years now, because everything that they produced over the last few years, whether it be Prince of Persia, whether it be some of the Assassin's Creed stuff, whatever it has been, has literally cost them money. They have lost money on all of that kind of stuff. So they're in a bad state. And that's why I think you see a lot of these bigger AAA studios going back and remastering old games and re-releasing them, because it's one of those things they know people are going to go out there and buy it, especially with all the advances in technology. If you can make it look prettier and better, people are going to want to play it with all of their new upgraded hardware and their new controller layout and everything else. So it actually makes sense. That's, like I said, I think if anything, these Steam numbers are something that just represent what the studios have already seen. So here's one of the things that they point out. People are more interested in older games, either driven by nostalgia or an incomplete backlog. So they talk about it in recent years. It's been not uncommon to find opinions on the internet of gamers coming to be increasingly interested in more classic games instead of more recent titles. Steam data seems to confirm this. This trend, as 47% of total user playtime in 2024 was given to games released from 1 to 7 years ago. Moreover, according to PC Gamer, 37% was spent on games older than that. And honestly, it's one of those things. If you watch a lot of the live streams out there nowadays, a lot of people are going back there and playing the old retro games. I mean, Epic Mike over there of the Epic Verse, he's one of those guys that's going out there. He's been going through, like, I think he's going through the Metal Gear Solid series. He went through all of those. I think he's been going through some of the other stuff. I mean, you see this a lot with a lot of people out there that are streaming things. And honestly, a lot of people that I know in our chats out there talk about how those are the kind of games you play all the time. I mean, there's a prime example of one of our guys that's always hanging out, Low Spec Linux Gaming. He's one of those guys that's all he plays is old retro games, and he shows you how you can do it on very limited hardware and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I mean, Stuttering Craig, that's what they've been doing on his channel. So this isn't a surprising trend at all, especially if you listen to your customers and you listen to your audiences. And why wouldn't they? Because so many of the games have been coming out as broken and buggy messes. And here they point out to that point. There are some issues with AAA perception. Price, quality, and content are some of the factors driving popular opinion. I mean, take Star Wars Outlaws for a prime example. And besides all of the other nonsense you can put along with it and the influence that Kathleen Kennedy and Glad and everything else had on those games, at the end of the day, the game came out as a broken and buggy mess. They were asking, what, $130 for their complete package when literally that game came out on day one and was a broken and buggy mess. I mean, we saw the gameplay trailer footage from IGN where IGN's trying to tell you how awesome it looks, and they're trying to promote it, and they're trying to go yada, yada, yada. This is amazing, and this is fabulous, and this is wonderful. And we're like looking, I'm like, you are trying to get us to not believe our lying eyes. We're looking at this gameplay footage that you are showing us, and it looks like garbage. And Ubisoft was asking $130 for the premium package that would include like all of the Jabba the Hutt stuff. And that's one of the other problems that people are having with this. So it used to be, the base game, 60, 70 bucks, right? And that's what you'd get. You'd get a complete and total game for like 60, 70 bucks, right? And now, of course, you got the preemie ones, and the ones that come out like with the early release, if it's got like a $90 package, right? And you get early release, you get to play it like 3 or 4 days early, you get a bunch of little extra features and, just cosmetic stuff. I don't mind things like that, but $130, and it includes story DLC, which you probably just ripped out of the base game to begin with and put out there. That's a problem. And then, of course, we can talk about Concord, right? That's another big problem. I mean, it was literally the biggest video game disaster in history. That game cost Sony $500 million and got shut down. Why? Because not only was it just something that was the market is completely flooded with all of these kind of battle royale online, first-person shooters or third-person shooters, all of those kind of games out there. The market is so flooded with those. On top of that, you had a completely and totally hideous protagonist that nobody wanted to play. I mean, literally one of their tanks looked like a grenade. They weren't even beefy. They literally looked like a giant round green grenade. I mean, like, who wants to play as a protagonist about that? Because that doesn't give you escapism. Escapism, you want to go in there and you want to play a game and you want to be like this fabulous buff giant rocking dude out there, or this chick out there that's hot and she's got this really badass battle armor and this big old battle axe. And like, that's what you want to look at, beautiful things. You know what I mean? If you want to look at ugly fat people, we'll go to Walmart, man. Like, it's not rocket science to find that kind of thing. That's not what you want in your games, and it's not, especially when you're asking some of these AAA prices. That's absolutely insane, and it's just never going to go. It's never going to fly at all. And this is the exact same kind of stuff that they talk about. I think this is a huge mark of this. I mean, look at this, Last of Us 2. We can talk about that kind of stuff out there. All of the issues that happen with that. That's the other problem too. Is the general gamers out there, they don't trust these AAA studios anymore. I mean, literally I think Cyberpunk 2077, which now that it's fixed and now that it's like 4 years old, I'm absolutely loving it. It's an absolute blast of a game, and I love the freaking game. But literally, that game, I think that game was really the one that kind of broke the general gamers back right there as far as like pre-orders and all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, that game was one of the most hyped of all time. I mean, I was extremely excited about it. I mean, the whole Cyberpunk idea, going into the city and all this other kind of stuff. I thought this was an amazing idea. It was an amazing amazing concept. I could not wait to get into it. And so many people pre-ordered and so many people were so excited for it. And then what happened? It came out and became a broken and buggy mess. And I think that really, for the majority of gamers out there, I think that broke their trust with the AAA gaming studios out there. And then when you add on top of that these $130 packages, and then once again, it comes out as a broken and buggy mess. I mean, we can go back to last year, 2023, what happened with the Saints Row reboot. I mean, obviously, it was another of them situations where the entire company, the entire organization was nothing but a bunch of diversity, inclusion, and equity hires, and color us shocked there. A bunch of inexperienced people can't make a game. And that's what we're facing down with Assassin's Creed Shadows right now. I mean, literally, Ubisoft has said in several different interviews that there's a bunch of people working on that game that have never worked on a video game before. Why did you hire them? Why, other than diversity, inclusion, and equity reasons? They literally hired a bunch of inexperienced people, and that's why that game is going to end up flopping and probably going to end up coming out as the broken and buggy mess, just like Star Wars Outlaws was. That's why they delayed the game, because gamers asked them over and over and over again, are you going to delay this game? It looks like crap. No, full steam ahead. And what happened? That game turned into an absolute flop because people don't trust you anymore. And then outrageous price packages for things that are broken and buggy messes. Nobody wants this. Why? Why bother when I've got most everybody out there that's got a Steam catalog out there? If you've got Steam and you play games on your PC, you probably have a backlog of 1,000 games out there. Why would you bother going out there and spending $70 or $80 on this brand new game that's going to end up being broken and buggy mess and filled with transactions, and you're going to have to end up buying like an Ultimate Edition, you're going to have to buy a season pass to keep getting things going, and some of those can be outrageous in prices. And then when you have those situations where it's a play to win, where you can automatically get better quality just by paying the game, well, people don't want that. And so, like they said right here, there are lots of games to choose from. The situation may indicate an impending problem in the gaming landscape, and that's one of the things. Video games, I won't say are easy to make, right? But now look at it. I mean, what Power World was developed with like a team of 10 people, right? And look at the massive success of that. I mean, they had to hire more people just to handle all the money they made from that game. So that's the thing. It's so much more easily accessible to the average person out there, or to the people that have like a little bit of gaming knowledge. You don't have to have this giant studio or this giant team to make a video game. I mean, you can go on YouTube now and watch tutorials that will teach you how to make your own video game. And yeah, are they going to have all the polish and the shine of some of these big AAA studios? Although honestly, like we talked about with all the broken and buggy messes, the polish and the shine really doesn't happen too much with a lot of the AAA games anymore. But just let that being said, that being the actual standard. But at the end of the day, that's what gamers have been trying to tell these studios forever and ever. They talk about the fact in this article right here, they talk about Nintendo is the only one that is the exception to the rule across all of the rest of these platforms. PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, the only exception to the rule is Nintendo, where a lot of the stuff that they've been playing are 4 years or generally within the last 4 years, right? And why? Because Nintendo knows it doesn't have to have the best graphics, it doesn't have to have cutting edge technology, HD, 5000p, it doesn't need all of that kind of stuff, right? Because it gives you good gameplay mechanics, it gives you a fun story that you can enjoy, and is a good quality game. That's the important part. If these companies would concentrate more on their gameplay than all of these shiny new little features and all of this diversity, inclusion, and equity, and making sure you got all the pronoun nonsense in there, then you'd actually be able to give us good quality gameplay. The graphics don't have to be the best out there. I mean, look at Power World. Look at the success of that one. I mean, what was the other big one this year that came out on Sony? I can't remember the name of it now, but either way, it was basically like a Super Mario Galaxy World. It was just like Sony's greatest hits and went through a bunch of their kind of stuff. Not super crazy graphics and none of that kind of stuff out there, but it ended up absolutely smashing things. And that's the thing about this. These studios have been concentrating on the wrong things for so very long. They're wanting to be the most powerful. They're wanting to be the bestest out there, and their new games simply are not hitting out there with the gaming industry. And why should they? Why would anybody bother trusting these AAA studios? Why not wait for your favorite guy out there to buy the game, review it for you, and find out whether it's even worth your time? Because these companies have done that over and over again. And like I said, the gaming industry landscape has been so neutralized. We've seen so many indie hits over the last few years that came from very small teams. The AAA studios are going to end up getting completely and totally trounced by this kind of stuff. They're doing massive layoffs while all the indies out there are making these super successful games, and they're hiring more people than ever. And that means that the AAA system is broken. They are overtaxed with way too many employees and all these fake jobs that don't actually do anything. I mean, Ubisoft, why do you've got like 300 people working on Assassin's Creed 2, and you said the majority of them have no experience in gaming. Why would you hire these people? Why would you hire these people? So check this out. While player perception is an important factor when it comes to video game sales and reception reception, there is another issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah, reception, no, forced diversity, inclusion, and equity. Oh, I don't know, maybe all the broken and buggy messes will try to tell you, no, it's fine. Everything should be fine. According to Steam currently has about 200,000 games in its library, where only about 18,000 have been released in 2024. This means about 9% of the total games in the library are new releases. So there's plenty of good old stuff that you can access that you don't need at all. So this is their conclusion on some of this kind of stuff. And then, of course, we're going to give you our giant elephant in the room kind of situation. Annually, Steam receives more than 10,000 new games, a number that is also growing progressively. Of course, these games do not only include the biggest releases in the industry, but also count shovelware games and titles from smaller developers that have not wide recognition. However, the possibility of newer releases standing out in such a flooded market is quite slim. Well, that's not really true. Not if your game is hot, not if your game is popular, and it does really well, because if you can get word of mouth around, word of mouth is king nowadays, right, boys and girls? Like, that is authenticity is the currency of the realm, and word of mouth is king when it comes to marketing. Nothing else will give you the kind of advantage that word of mouth is. That's what happened with Pale World. That's what happened with a lot of these. That's what happened with the Helldivers. That's what happened with a lot of these other games. Word of mouth got around, and everybody loved it. So they're talking about this new releases. They're basically giving the AAA studios an excuse. Well, it's not your guys' fault that your games aren't doing well. There's just so many games. The market's just flooded. Many factors come into play in today's gaming landscape. Whether for monetary reasons, ease of access, preference, or simply to clear backlogs, gamers are showing an increased interest to revisiting old games. This presents a challenge for developers worldwide, as their new games must compete not only against releases from other companies, but also out against years of established and recognized options. So let's talk about the giant elephant in the room here that CBR doesn't want to mention, right? Why are gamers going back to old games? Why are gamers going back there and revisiting some of their favorites out there? Why? Because the majority of the gaming landscape out there today doesn't give you anything new to be excited about. It really doesn't. I mean, seriously, Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft, one of the biggest legends of all time. Nobody was excited for that game. That game lost them money. That game has completely and totally flopped. Concord from Sony PlayStation, supposed to be the new big hit of all these kind of things. This stuff is just not selling. It's just not doing very well. You've got other things like Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade out there absolutely crushing it in the lyrics. Why? Well, it's very simple. Right? Because a lot of the Western AAA studios out there have decided to worship at the altar of the cult. They have decided that now is the time where they want to go full bore in. Now, this stuff's been in development for years, right? We all know how long it takes to develop a video game. 5, 6 years in some cases, sometimes longer. We've seen ones take a decade, right? But the problem is these infections have been infested inside of these companies for several years now. They got infected inside of Ubisoft a long time ago. We've got CD Projekt Red coming up there. A lot of people are very worried about Grand Theft Auto 6 and what kind of diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense is going on in there. And this is the thing. A lot of these studios are panicking now, right? Because they have seen, they've lost billions of dollars, if not tens of billions of dollars in just the last year on all of these flops, right? And it's not going to work. And why? Because the companies out there decided to listen to all of the screaming mobs out there on Twitter and not listen to you, the gamer out there. So guess what? Just like it is over there in Hollywood, just like it is with movies and television out there, we don't need your modern garbage. We never have. Because, like you said, there's huge backlogs out there. And that's what they're now finding out and realizing. Giving us all of these games out there on Steam and not having them all these on these, discs with systems that don't work anymore. I mean, look at the retro gaming Steam that has the retro gaming market that has just exploded in the last few years. I'm sure every single one of us, if your town's got probably more than 100,000 people or maybe even less in it, you've got a retro gaming store in your town. And they're very successful. I know the one that started out in my neighborhood got so busy, got so big that they had to move to a much bigger place over in the other side of town out there because they were doing gangbusters. Why? Because all of these companies out there have decided to get in bed with the diversity, inclusion, and equity mob, right? Whether through strong arm tactics or whether they actually were true believers of the cult out there. We saw that happen with Dragon Age Veilguard, where literally the creative designer out there flat out admitted that it was literally nothing more than his own personal issues being worked through inside of a video game. You've got Ubisoft out there with Star Wars Outlaws taking this gorgeous, gorgeous woman and uglifying her as a protagonist, right? Instead of giving us a Han Solo story, setting it specifically in different times. I mean, we've heard the stories coming out about things. We've got another game out there that was one of the big successful hits out there. Well, now because the studio who worked on the first game out there has been infected with the cult, guess what? Now they're going to switch it to a female protagonist out there. Like, this is one of the things that's going to happen. If they continue down this path of diversity, inclusion, and equity, we'll see exact same thing that happened to Hollywood out there. They will lose hundreds of billions of dollars, and we will see more and more studio closures out there. So if AAA wants to actually get its gamers back, fire all of the activists, start making good games that aren't broken and buggy, give us full and complete games, and not all this DLC nonsense and all this garbage season pass BS, right? That are just microtransactions trying to suck more and more money out of us. Give us complete games. And give us protagonists that are beautiful and wonderful and engaging and are a lot of fun out there. But instead, you've given us a bunch of hot garbage, a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of Concord garbage. I mean, Dustborn, anybody? Wonder why these games aren't working out. Wonder why everybody's going and playing their indies, because we don't need you anymore. We know that there are good quality games that a bunch of us have not played, and we will continue to do that until AAA studios out there pull their heads out of their asses and actually get back to making good quality games. Until the day they do that, then this will continue to go out there, and you know what? I'm here for it, because competition breeds excellence, and the more the AAA studios continue to screw up, the more the indies and the more those AA and single A studios out there that can rise and take their place, because they actually understand what gamers want. And that's why Steam players out there are not playing new games. They're playing old games. They're playing indie games. Why? Because the AAA studios suck, and they have concentrated more on diversity, inclusion, and equity than giving us good quality games and a bunch of microtransactions. And hey, this is what happens when you go down that path, when you stop listening to what gamers want and you start listening to all these investors and all these individual little minority and all these other little talking head, all of these activist groups, all these organizations, whether it be Sweet Baby Inc. or any of that other kind of stuff. Guess what? They never represented the gamers. They never represented people that actually bought your games, and they certainly don't represent the future of gaming. And that has been proven right here. We will take our nostalgia any day over your hot garbage that you are putting out these days, charging outrageous prices over. And guess what? You got in bed with the devil, you danced with the devil, and now you're getting burned. So yes, me and mine, we'll go play old games until you pull your head out of your ass or we watch you all go bankrupt. AAA, the choice is up to you.